MTP 201, Unit 4, the process of tie and dye and equipment to be used. Tie and dye, a form of resist dyeing, is a technique of patterning fabric by tying parts of a fabric in different ways to prevent the penetration of dyes. The whole point of tie dyeing is to prevent the dye from reaching the fabric evenly. Any places that the dye can't reach will stay white or a light color. In this unit, you will acquire a detailed information about the different process and equipment to be used while doing tie and dye. Objective. After going through this lesson, you will understand the equipment to be used for doing tie and dye, the method of doing tie and dye. Introduction. The pattern of tie and dye can be accomplished with many ways, like folding the fabric, tying it with string using rubber bands. There are many different ways to tie and dye, but basic process to prepare different patterns of ties and then dyeing is the same. In this unit, we will gain an in-depth knowledge of basic procedure of tie and dye and the equipments used for doing it. Process. The process of tie and dye is as follows. Wash the cloth to remove dirt, grease or any other dressing. Iron. Third, mark out the pattern on the cloth in pencil. Fourth, prepare the cloth by knotting, binding, folding, sewing, etc., or a combination of these, always keeping one side as the right side on the outside of the bundle. Fifth, add wax or any tinting agent if required. Prepare dye and test for color. 7. Wet sample if necessary and place in the dye for the required length of time. 8. Remove and squeeze out surplus dye. 9. Rinse in the sink or a bowl, but the water should be clear towards the end. Squeeze out surplus water and hang up to dry. 11. When a second or third color is to be dyed, tie up the sample again or add more binding where the previous color is to be reserved. Repeat the dyeing process for each subsequent color. After the final dyeing and rinsing, dry as quickly as possible. 12. Untie the sample. 13. Rinsing again if necessary and partially dry. 14. Iron while still damp. 15. Collect and tie together any length of thread which can be used again. Dry and wrap on a piece of cardboard for future use. Any length over 6 inches are worth saving and can be used several times. Keep the coarse and fine binding threads separate. Equipment. Very little equipment is needed for tie dyeing, so that the easier forms of crafts can be readily tied out at home or in the classroom. The basic needs are: first, vessels to contain dyes. Second, a vessel for rinsing dyed fabrics. Third, somewhere to hang the sample to drip and dry. And of course, fourth, fabrics, dye and their binding thread. Dye vessels. These should just comfortably accommodate the tie-up samples so that it is immersed in the dye and yet not be so large that an unnecessary amount of dye must be mixed. Saucepan, bowls, basins, buckets, etc. of stainless steel, enamel or galvanized ware can be used for hot and cold dyes. Also for cold dyes, vessels made of plastic, pot and glass can be used. Rinsing facilities. A sink with plenty of water is the ideal way to rinse, but a large bucket of bowl may be used if the water can be changed frequently. Other items which may be useful are several plastic or old spoons, sticks or glass rods for stirring the dye, a small pair of scissors with thin blades, rubber gloves, darning or crewel needles, old newspapers, screw top jars or bottles to store dye liquid. Binding material. Variety of material may be used for binding the fabric, like cotton thread, with different thicknesses, strings, rubber bands, clips, pulses, small coins, marbles, etc. Dyes. Various dyes are used for different types of fabrics which have already been familiarized to us in the Unit 3. Cloth. Beginners are advised to make the first few experiments with piece cut from old sheets, shirts or pillowcases. This cloth, which has been well washed, is absorbent and dyes well. All cotton cloth, specially mercerized, are excellent for tie and dye. Some are lawn, muslin, voile, drill, poplin, cambric, casement, old sheeting, flallan, tarling, cotton velvet, corduroy, cotton satin, sateen, calico, unbleached calico after it has been scored, viscose rayon so long as they are absorbent. Silks, fabrics of man-made fibers can be used if the appropriate dyes are available and are used. Otherwise, we will stick to the natural fibers. Self-check questions. What are the equipments used for doing tie and dye? Please write the answers or discuss amongst yourself Question number 1. What are the equipments used for doing tie and dye? Question number 2. Name different types of fabrics used for making tie and dye patterns. If you have answered or written the answers, let me give you the answers to it. Rather, they are the possible answers to your self-check questions. The equipment used for tie and dye are dye vessels, rinsing equipment, binding materials, dyes and cloth. Question number 2. The different types of fabrics used for tie and dye are lawn, muslin, voile, drill, poplin, cambric, casement, old sheeting, flannan, tarling, cotton velvet, corduroy, cotton satin, sateen, calico, unbleached calico, etc. Now let us continue the lesson. Protection for the hands when binding. When there is a considerable amount of binding to be done, the fingers may need some protection to prevent the thread from cutting into the skin or causing blisters. A thin cotton glove or mitten can be worn on the hands that takes the greater strain of pulling. If wearing a glove, the movement of the fingers or generally slows down the process of binding. Place strips of adhesive plaster over the areas of fingers or hands which are most vulnerable. It may be helpful to wrap the thread on a reel or piece of cardboard which can be gripped when tightening or pulling up the binding. Another way of easing the strain on the hands when pulling up the binding is to wrap the thread several times around a pencil or similar object, which can then be used as a handle. The pencil is released when the thread is sufficiently taut and the process repeated as further binding requires tightening. Terminal questions. What are the various steps involved in tie and dye process? Number 2. List the material and equipment required for the tie and dye process.